That's me. All right. So I'm Rob with Martinek Insurance Services. We're an independent insurance agency here in Hendersonville. Been in business about 15 years now. So first 5 were captive with Allstate. Last decade's been independent. The independent side is much more flexible. I think it's more consumer driven. So we don't have the advertising dollars, but I tell everybody, hey, if you've heard of it and it's easy, it's going to cost you a lot of money. It's kind of like you're paying for those commercials at State Farm, Progressive, Allstate, Nationwide, the jingles we call them, right? The Liberty Mutuals, the Nationwides, the jingle companies. Those jingles are going to cost you money, and they're probably not going to give you as much benefit as you could get elsewhere with a little bit of hard work and a little bit of research. Most people find us by referral, so we're about 100%, not 100%, about 90-some% referral. So it's our existing customers that spawn most of our growth. But today, for insurance, we were talking in last week, and some people had some questions about claims. So I'm not sure how familiar everybody is with claims. Bryce is probably real familiar because he's on the restoration side. Daniel probably also has a good handle on claims. Yeah, so that's probably 90-some% of your business as well. But here's how claims work. Does anybody know how long you have to file a claim for personal liability?
30 days.
30 days. Good guess, but no. But that's worth
Oh, all right.
100.
Hey, I didn't
Year. You actually have
again.
1 year to file.
Wow, 1 year.
One
That's
year.
at 30 days.
1 year. So how about property damage? So in other words, somebody hits your car and they're at fault. You have a year to file a claim against them to recover your money. If you drive your own car off the road and damage it, how long do you have to file that claim?
6 months.
Try again.
30 days.
90 days.
Try again.
A year.
Try again.
30 days.
No, you have 3 years to file
3
a property
years?
damage
Whoa.
claim in the state of Tennessee. In fact, I just had one come through last
Are you
week
kidding?
from 2017.
Okay, so wait a minute.
She
Hold
filed an
on.
auto claim.
I know.
You
Maybe I
wrecked
have
your
some
own
money.
car?
Yeah, I'm thinking back.
I know.
It's property damage when you wreck your own car.
Yeah.
So, wait a minute. Explain. Give an example of that.
So this is the claim that hit my desk last week. Is a customer of mine backed into a pole in her own garage in August of 2017, and she filed the claim last week.
So, you're. How
Does
is
it
that possible?
does it hurt your odds of it getting covered if you wait? Or
The
is it
insurance
same?
company has a right to inspect, and the longer you wait,
The
the more you
okay.
put that in jeopardy,
Okay.
right? So there's going to be some due diligence that's going to go through. There's a good chance that SIU, which is the Special Investigations Unit, will take a look at a claim that's that old, going that far back, to see maybe she damaged it some other way, or
Yeah, I'm thinking.
You know,
Do you have a police
who
report
knows?
or anything like that?
But that's going to be documentation that's going to help your claim. If you guys, if you pay attention, you'll know that insurance is a contract, and contracts are always driven by lawyers. So we peel back the onion on insurance, you eventually get to a lawyer. And insurance fraud generally always comes with jail time. Always. So there's no it's very rare for someone to get convicted of insurance fraud and not do time. Because they don't want false claims.
Because I
obviously.
thought you had to do it as soon as possible, or you wouldn't get it covered.
Is that what
It's
they just
best
said?
to do it as soon as possible
Yeah.
because you can get the insurance company can investigate, everything's fresh, the documentation's there. But legally in Tennessee, you have a year for liability and 3 years for property.
Wow.
That's great.
So one of the other hot claims topics, of course, is flood. So anybody remember 2010? May 1st?
Oh, yeah.
2010. So I had one of the, I think, unique claims back then is I had a boat sink on dry land in 2010. So it was over at Champion Marine. It was in a lot getting fixed. They unplug all the boats usually when they take them out of the water. That lot was in the floodplain. That lot flooded. All the boats were unplugged, so none of them floated. So it sank all the boats on dry land. One of them happened to be one of my customers who was attending a wedding on the 1st of May and called me on the 30th of April and got coverage on his boat.
Wow.
So that was I think that was like a $7,000 or
Oh my
$8,000
gosh.
phone call that he made. Literally about 3:30 we found the policy.
That's crazy.
amazing.
So yeah, amazing things do happen. Does anybody know the definition of a flood? Because again, we're going back to legal topics.
Water from the ground? water from the sky.
So according to FEMA, it's a general and temporary condition of partial or complete inundation of 2 or more acres of normally dry area or 2 or more properties.
Okay.
So if your property floods, that's not a flood. If yours and your neighbor property floods, it is a flood. And the important thing about flood is what is not included in your homeowner's insurance.
Flood.
3 things. Flood is one. What's another one?
Water, no, what do you mean? Like
What's
not
another
covered?
exclusion in almost every homeowner's policy? Flood is one, but that's why the National Flood Insurance Program is there, right? So you
Right.
keep going into that. Anybody else got a guess?
Medical? I have
Mold?
no idea.
Mold. Now, mold is typically a limitation now, so they cover like 5,000 or 20,000, depends on the policy. But mold is generally excluded.
Because normally neglect is what mold is.
Right. And then there's one other one. And it's kind of in the category of mold because you can get an endorsement for it. There's something called the new madras.
Oh, earthquake.
Earthquake.
Earthquake. So, or, they call it the earth movement. So settling, your house settles, cracks your walls, not covered with
Not
earth
covered.
movement. So be careful, look at your home policies and see what you covered. The other thing on these policies is what gets a lot of people in trouble is limitations and exclusions. Always look at the limitation exclusions and what you need. Common limitations and exclusions. Anyone? No hunters in the group?
Oh.
No zombies?
Yeah, my husband's a hunter. Guns aren't
Firearms.
Guns, firearms are generally,
Not covered.
there's a limitation. The limitation is very specific. Do you know on which peril guns are limited and excluded? So in other words, if your house burns down, they're going to pay for your guns that are in the fire. But if your guns are stolen, it will not.
Now, why is that?
Because the number 1 and number 2 items in the theft claim are jewelry and guns.
Okay.
No
So if you
surprises.
get wiped out in a robbery, they're not gonna cover any of that?
Not unless you have it under scheduled personal property.
Okay.
Because theft, they're going to exclude it.
Wow, very interesting.
So then
So-
that's where we need to buy additional coverage.
If you have a lot of jewelry, if you have guns, that's where you'd want to consider the additional scheduled personal property, and it's relatively inexpensive. It's generally about $10 per thousand.
Shoot whoever.
Right, so
Like
just-
$10,000 piece of jewelry, it's gonna cost you $100 a year
here.
Yeah.
to cover.
It'd be worth it.
He brings up a good point, gun safe, and for those that have gun safes, let's just say, most thieves would probably try to take the gun safe versus try to get it open. So let's just say you have a gun safe, it's $1,000 or $1,500 gun safe, whatever, and they take the gun safe, can you at least claim the gun safe and maybe not what was in it?
If they take the gun safe, that's gonna be really hard to do, because most of those things weigh about
Oh, I
5,000
know.
pounds. So I don't know how they're gonna get that out
Anybody
of the
that
house.
would do that would work for a living.
Yeah.
They're not that
Yeah, usually,
They're gonna be prepared.
Usually gun safes are sold with the home. Is there was the realtor in the group? Harrison's not here. The gun safe comes with the house because they ain't moving it out.
Yeah.
But the gun safe's a good idea. And vaulted jewelry, if you have vaulted jewelry, you get a discount. They give it to you because you're only taking it out of the vault to wear it every so often when you're going to whatever kind of charity ball you're going to or something like that.
Vaulted, is it in your home or separate location? Like,
At the bank.
oh, okay,
So yeah, if you have a vault in your home, that's great, but you're not going to get a discount. But if you have a vault somewhere else, you
I
will.
got you.
We have safe boxes and they're very cheap.
All right, so that's going to conclude kind of my topic on claims, unless anybody has a specific question. The other thing to look for, of course, is deductible, right? So if you have a claim, there's normally a deductible that you pay first before the claim comes in over. So, well, I guess one more thing on that. So some people will say, well, hey, is this worth claiming? That's really an economic decision. Small claims are tough because it might be slightly over deductible, but then you're going to get a surcharge for how many years? Anyone?
5?
Come on, give me a guess. 10. You get a surcharge for 3 years. Normally it'll affect your tiering for 5. If it's a comprehensive claim, if it's under $250, some companies don't charge. Other companies say if it's under $1,000, they don't charge at all. Some people say, hey, if I file this claim, it's comprehensive, it's not going to affect me, right? And most often, sometimes it's not true. Yes, it's always going to affect you. May not be a surcharge, but it's going to be in what they call the tiering. So they play those little games of, you've got a claim, and some companies go back 7 years, some go back 5, some go back only 3. Just kind of depends the company you're with and what they're doing. But if you have a claim, it's going to affect you probably for 5 to 7 years, either in surcharges, first 3. That's almost standard with every company. Some companies will look at 5 for tiering. Some companies will even go 7 for underwriting, which means if you have multiple claims over a stretch of a period, they're not even going to make you an offer. So, and then one last thing about insurance, just for those of you that don't know, again, back to legal, it's a unilateral contract. That's what happens in insurance. So you either accept it or you don't. Once you bind that contract and put your money up, the company is obligated for the term, you are not. So in other words, if I got an auto policy and it's there for 12 months and I decide the next day I want to move it, I can move it. I sign an auto policy and I get in 3 accidents in the same day, insurance company can't do anything. They gotta cover you for the whole rest of the period no matter what until it comes to renewal. Unilateral contract. Sometimes it works to your benefit, sometimes it doesn't.
Depends on the number of accidents.
Right, and then at renewal, it opens back up. So at renewal is when you're gonna get tagged. So from an insurance agency perspective, somebody gets in an accident, that's a bad thing because it affects our loss ratio. But they're probably not gonna move until renewal because the next day, every other company's gotta charge them for the accident, and we don't. Until it comes up for renewal. But that's why your insurance agent often says, wait till renewal, because at renewal, it's gonna open that policy back up to what is. Insurance is also point in time. So the people that hop around a lot sometimes hurt themselves because they are gonna lose insurance tenure discounts. If you've been with the same company over 5 years, a lot of companies will give you a discount coming in. There's also tenured benefits. Some companies give you things like accident forgiveness, things like that for their tenured customers. They also give you a little more underwriting flexibility. Something unusual happens, like 2 claims really close together. They'll decide to renew you instead of non-renew you based on your tenure with that company. But it's always a point in time transaction. So someone says, well, I'll just, wait till renewal and I'll be fine. Well, if we rewrite that policy, it's different. It's always different. It's always, what does your life look like when that policy's written? It's a snapshot. And that snapshot changes, obviously, through time. So, any questions?
Interesting.
Accidents, speaking of, they typically stay on they follow you as far as the insurance for how long?
3-year surcharge, 5 years usually for tiering, and up to 7 years for underwriting.
Oh,
Is how they're gonna. Now the big problem with claims from an insurance company perspective is what they call the permissible driver incident. So who does insurance follow? Does it follow the car or does it follow the person?
The
I
person.
say the person.
Yes, but also the car. So insurance primarily always follows the car. So if you loan your car to somebody, you are loaning your insurance to somebody because that is the primary person responsible for an accident. So if I loan my car to my neighbor, he goes out and he runs over a pedestrian, they're going to sue me because it's my car. He's secondary. If it exceeds my limits, then the operator's limits come into play. So what happens in insurance is you have a household member, maybe a 16-year-old, 17-year-old, who's unrated on the policy, or your cousin comes into town, drives your car, gets in an accident, they pay the claim, but there was no rating for that driver. So it was an inappropriately rated risk. The insurance company takes the back and pays the claim. And guess where that accident goes when that person goes the next year or wherever? The violation or the accident follows the driver. So the policy stays intact. They have it unrated and they can't surcharge for an accident. But oftentimes they non-renew. So that's how they get out of that contract when they've got somebody on a permissible driver claim. But,
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
all right, well, without any other questions, thank you for letting me present.
Thanks, man.
Awesome, thank you.